Good evening, Des Moines. Welcome to the Doc and Lefty program here on webcast1live.com studios in the always lovely, almost festive pre-Thanksgiving splendor that is downtown Des Moines. We're on the Skywalk every Tuesday night from 6:30 to 7:30. The Doc is out. Folks, the Doc is out. When the Doc is out, he is traveling, and he will hopefully be back by next week. I don't think that he told me he'd be gone for 2 shows in a row, but he is on the lam, so to speak. And usually when the Doc is out, I'm bringing some musician friends in. We're talking about records. We're doing a lot of different things that the kids like to do, as they say. But I had court all day today. I'm in a suit. And so we're talking about city planning. Before we get to that, my guest, who's so graciously joined me at the last minute, I did want to talk about some of the things in the international and national scene that are of interest and that have been in the news over the past weekend. And yesterday, looks like at least the international negotiators, the Iranian negotiators, are starting to kind of come towards some sort of stepping stone agreement to resolve this nuclear issue. I got to say, progress in that regard is great. You got the usual suspects, the Republicans and the Israelis and the Saudis are against this sort of progress, and I got to think that the folks in Riyadh and the folks over in Jerusalem are kind of looking at each other across the table, thinking, "How did we get here? This is just crazy." But I got to feel like any progress towards a more peaceful, non-nuclear Iran, that's the main aspect that John Kerry's not giving up on, is that Iran will not have the capability of making a nuclear weapon, and we're going to lift some sanctions maybe in the interim to kind of move in that direction. I think that's a good deal. So really, really, really would appreciate some more support back here at home, but it feels like if we're not bombing somebody or threatening to bomb somebody, our government doesn't really know how to talk to anybody. So hopefully this is a lead-in to maybe making our president look less of a warmonger and make a more significant break in international relations and international policy from the Bush administration than he has in the past. Lefty criticizing the president on anything is not something that I do very often, but when it comes to war, drones, and the peace process, I get pretty riled up. But anyway, that's all there. That's all the commentary, and I got to get that out of my system because I know that we all know, folks, the Doc doesn't let me do that very often. I got to get my liberal perspective out there, or at least what I like to think of as my sort of pacifistic liberal perspective, because I know there are a lot of liberal hawks out there. Anyway, special guest, great guy. Met him just a few minutes before we went on air, and I already know that he and I are going to be best friends in the entire world. I've got David Dunn with us. He's a city planner with the city of Des Moines, and we're here to talk about the revitalization, the rebirth, if you will, of the South Side. David, welcome to the show.
Well, thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Hey, no, the pleasure's all mine, for sure. Why don't you tell the folks out there listening a little bit about yourself, and we'll just jump right into it.
Well, yeah, I work with the city of Des Moines. I'm a senior city planner. I've worked there for the last 7 years, and we're doing a lot of interesting and exciting projects in the city, and I think it's a wonderful opportunity to come on the show tonight and talk about some of them, especially on the South Side, where we're really starting to see that revitalization kind of occurring all over the place, all the way over on the Fleur area, all the way to Southwest 9th. There's some stuff going on there, and you're starting to see just an abundance of commercial development along Southeast 14th and the Easter Lake areas continuing to thrive. A lot of great things going on.
Hey, no, it's, if the folks that don't know, my law firm is on Southeast 14th. I'm right in the middle of all this, and I can tell you, it's a shock to look out kind of kitty corner across the street, up the street a little bit over the hill, to see a big Buffalo Wild Wings going up and blocking the view of the CC's Pizza and the fitness center out in front of the Southeast 14th Hy-Vee. I will absolutely say that. But David, I guess, so you worked for Des Moines for 7 years. Where were you before that?
Well, this has been, one of my first and only job in planning. It's a great place to work, and I don't want to be anywhere else, quite honestly. It's a great city. When you go to other communities, you talk about what we do here in Des Moines, not just downtown, but in the different neighborhoods and bringing back neighborhood commercial and going into the residential neighborhoods. So many wonderful things going on in the community that, honestly, this is really where I want to be.
Oh, well, it's a great place to be. I think that Ed Fallon, the host of the Fallon Forum, that so graciously leads in to our show, and we certainly do appreciate his support every week, considers, and I don't want to steal this from him, I'll give attribution where attribution is due. He calls Des Moines the culinary and cultural crossroads of the country, and I got to think that he's right, especially with the great restaurants in the East Village. There's some more, Barada's on Southwest Union's been there for a really long time. But so David, you're a Des Moines city planner, and we're going to talk primarily about the South Side. Now, is that a function of how the city planning office is divided, or are you a South Sider? Are you from the Des Moines area originally?
Well, I'm originally from Mason City, so
Okay.
I was born and raised up there. I've been here now on and off for the last 12 years, with a couple of years away to go to grad school. In the city, we have 4 of us that work in our 58 neighborhoods. There's 4 in our division. We work all over the city in all types of neighborhoods. Every so often, it just seems that there's several projects in one part of town that one person gets. I've worked a lot on the South Side over the course of the last 5 or 6 years. And it's a great place to work. As you know, working there, there's a lot of stuff. I mean, Buffalo Wild Wings is a great thing to see on the South Side. Dunkin' Donuts is a great thing to see. The quality of the commercial we're getting along there is starting to really match the suburbs, and it's really going to help our residential demand. It's going to help fill in the Easter Lake area and a lot of great things.
Well, and what I'll tell you, because I'm actually moving from the West Side over back east to 2nd Avenue up a little bit north of Guthrie. So more in that eastern area, not quite as north as Highland Park, but kind of in the Birdland area.
Right in the Union Park area, one of our great neighbors.
Yeah, exactly.
Union Park is a hidden gem in Des Moines.
Can't
if
wait.
you drive through that neighborhood, you see the housing stock, and you're just blown away by how wonderful the houses are there. And most people have never been there, never seen them, and it's wonderful.
I can't wait to get over there. Just for the commute alone, it's going to be huge. I'm out west of the Country Club now, as it is over in West Des Moines. But so you're saying that the 4 of you work all over the city, and so there's nothing. You're not dedicated to any one borough, as it were. But you've been doing primarily the South Side work. So what would be your baby? What would be the thing that you've been working most closely on recently?
Yeah. There's a lot of great things going on. One of them we've been working real closely with is the Southwest 9th Corridor. It's an area that's been overlooked for a long time. There's been a lot of stuff on Fleur Drive with the airport and the beautification, and Southeast 14th has had an infusion of a lot of retail development. But Southwest 9th has kind of been stuck in the middle there between those two, really without a real core and identity. And so one of the things we've spent about the last year on, in fact, I just came from a meeting tonight with the Southwest 9th Merchants Group, is really kind of getting the things together. How do we organize that? Where do we move forward? How can we take care of some of those blighted monstrosities of buildings that just need to come down or need something to happen to them? And how do we really build a coalition to make that happen?
Sure. Now we're going to get into this in a little bit more deep. Well, actually, I mean, to take your point, it's kind of fun to think about Southwest 9th, because you don't think about, unless you live in the neighborhood, you don't think about just how sort of rough is relative. I don't want to make it sound like the neighborhood's dangerous, because it's not, but just rough in terms, as compared to the Wakanda Watrous area or the stuff on Fleur, for example. But you're driving through all that to get to Blank Park, to get to the golf course, and maybe to get to Norwalk, because you're not spending a lot of time on Southwest 9th.
Yeah, absolutely. That's one of the things that we found. We've been doing a lot of in information gathering. One of the things we found out that was really interesting to me is when you look at Southwest 9th, it's a 3-mile corridor between downtown and Army Post Road. It's a 5-mile corridor if you take that down to the Highway 5 bypass. We did a study of all of the properties along that corridor. Along that Southwest 9th corridor, one of the things we found out that was really interesting, it was truly mixed use. It was a third residential, a third retail, and a third office, which is really probably unlike any other of our corridors. Now, we have mixed-use corridors, but not in that sense of how it operates. The other thing we found out that was really interesting is that the average year built for a property along that corridor is 1963. So you have commercial buildings that are 50 years old along that corridor, which brings up a lot of issues with, functionally obsolete commercial properties. But also, for a lot of professional type offices, opportunities. You talk about diamonds in the rough. If you would get an opportunity to drive down that corridor and aren't dodging traffic, which most of the time you're doing.
That is true.
You really have an opportunity to look at things, see things from a different perspective, and see a different hidden gem every time you come down there.
That's fantastic. We're going to talk more about Southwest 9th because I got a couple of different questions that occurred to me as you were talking there, but we got to go to a break. So check out our sponsors, everybody. We'll be back right after these messages. Stay with us. We got David Dunn from the City Planning Office, and I'm sure you're not going to want to miss the rest of this hour. We'll be right back.
Bertroche and Associates will provide you with a friendly, caring, and confidential place to find help for mental health concerns. We are ready for your call. We are proud to work with military personnel and their families. Our doctor, Dr. J. Patrick Bertroche, provides a full range of psychiatric services for children, adolescents, and adults in a forthright and informative manner while maintaining a casual, comfortable, and relaxed atmosphere. Our licensed mental health therapists provide individual counseling to children, adolescents, and adults, including couples and marital counseling. Visit our website at bertrocheandassociates.com for more information or call 515-334-9484. Our offices are located at 5525 Meredith Drive in Des Moines, just east of Skate North off Merle Hay Road. Isn't it time to talk to someone? Take care of yourself and your family. Contact Bertroche and Associates.
And welcome back, everybody. Thanks for sticking around. We've got David Dunn from the Des Moines Planning Office. What's the official name of the agency or the administrative body you work for?
Well, I am a neighborhood planner with the City of Des Moines and our Community Development Department.
Okay, great. So I didn't want to keep saying the wrong thing this entire to give you some title that maybe is not as important as the one that you already have. So we're talking about the Southwest 9th Corridor, and for the folks that live in the neighborhood, now, I don't spend a lot of time on the Southwest 9th Corridor personally. I know that, like I said, you got the destinations, you got the zoo, and you got the golf course, and you got a few other things. But I was struck by the split, and I was surprised by that. Every corridor, it seems like, has character. Southeast 14th is just commercial the whole way, leading to the mall, leading down to the bypass. Fleur, residential. It's got the lake, it's got the beautiful median, the whole thing, and going to the airport. Southwest 9th doesn't have that kind of singular character. Is that something that you guys are addressing, or?
And that's one of the big issues is when you look at Southwest 9th, it's not it isn't really it's not Fleur Drive, it's not Southeast 14th, it's small properties. The average property size along that corridor is only about a third of an acre, not much bigger than my yard at home. When you talk about trying to put commercial uses on there, you have a real struggle.
A house.
It is, and that's how a lot of our old commercial areas are platted, and it brings up a lot of issues when you talk about development and redevelopment. How do you work in an area like that with today's, stormwater retention standards, which you need and are very worthwhile, but how do you redevelop that area, make sure it works, but also make sure it functions so you can actually put a viable commercial business in there?
Now, that's a really good point. The next thing I want to ask you a little bit, because there are blighted, and like I said, everything is relative. So I don't, there are blighted areas of Des Moines. I don't want to talk about. You don't like to talk about any blight in any city, I'm sure, and that's what one of your jobs is, to kind of minimize that as much as possible. But when you think about blight, at least in the news for me, when I think about it, you're always seeing pictures of neighborhoods, of boarded up houses and apartment complexes, because multifamily dwellings can tend to gather lots of lower income people together, and then it's the property value, all the wealthier people want to move away, and it's just kind of a cycle like that. But you said during the break that's not really the case on Southwest 9th Street.
There's about 50 properties we've identified so far, about a pool of about 400 that really could use a little bit of work. Some, quite honestly, the best thing we need to do is fire up the bulldozer, but a lot of them just need a facelift. A lot of them need somebody to come in, see the hidden gems that they are, and invest in them. But on this corridor, it's really not the residential properties that are the issue. It's mostly those commercial properties where over time. They haven't been updated. They probably don't have the amenities that people are looking for today. They don't have the parking, don't have the space that's needed. And so because of that, you see over the course of time, you see the disinvestment and you see the blight that you see there today.
Now, did you identify in the study? We don't need to go into the details of the parameters of the study, but did you identify any of the turnover? Usually you think about residential, especially single-family dwellings, as having less turnover maybe than a commercial concern. But were you able to identify some of the turnover in business? Has that contributed to some of the disinvestment? Is that a concern on Southwest 9th more than anywhere else?
One of the things we want to get in, and one of the reasons why I think organizations like the South and East Chamber are so important, is to build strong businesses along that corridor. Because a lot of the property is affordable, you get a lot of first-time businesses in there, and a lot of people who put their life savings on the line to invest in their dream. And how do we work with those people and make sure that they're, we can help make that happen, to build that stability on the corridor that we need, because you're right, there is a lot of turnover. You see every 6 months, you see a lot of these properties, you see a different sign or you see something else. Hey, I thought that was the sandwich shop and now it's a florist.
Everybody feels like they can open a bar or a coffee shop or something like that. And boy, it is a really tough thing. So what are some of the strategies that you and your team have identified about how to maybe help Southwest? I don't think is your goal to fix it, or is it your goal to sort of just give the people the tools they need to fix themselves?
Well, there's a few different things. I think one, we're right now, we're in the early stages of doing some of that work. We know that we need to do some redevelopment. We know we need to work with our partners, the Neighborhood Development Corporation, the nonprofits that work in the city, both the residential, the development community is going to be key to really identify properties that are ripe for redevelopment. And there are several along that corridor. The city of Des Moines is in the process of acquiring, property from Clear Channel at the corner of Army Post Road and Southwest 9th, where there's a billboard right now. And that's a key site. There's also key sites across the street from Lincoln High School that are ripe for redevelopment. And working with, neighborhood leaders, business owners, property owners in that area to really target what are some of those early victories that we can do, what are some of those win-win situations that we can do to build to continue to build on the momentum that's already there along that corridor.
And I'm glad that you brought up the high school, because Lincoln has over the years it's not been recently, it's been a long time, has developed a reputation that's less than, say, A plus and you got to think that it's got to be partly it's an organic thing arising from the neighborhood to a certain extent, and cleaning that up might allay some of those safety issues that have occurred in Lincoln, some of those past issues that have happened in the past over the last few years that made the news. Some of the violence and things that have kind of started to become associated with that area down there.
Well, one of the things, if you're a student and you look out the window and you see boarded up buildings, what perception does that tell you? Does that, what message does that deliver? And one of the things that's been wonderful about this, and working with the Des Moines School District, they have really been a great partner in everything that we've been doing now for about the last year and a half, and really been, in some ways, leading the charge to say, hey, let's get together. Let's work on cleaning up some of these issues, not just along Southwest 9th, not just in the south side, but the city as a whole. And let's really make some things happen, so to speak, and really working with the school district as a partner and getting the city and the school district and Polk County together and really saying, hey, you know what? We can do this stuff and we can make an impact. And I think that's kind of some of the stuff you're going to start to see here real soon along Southwest 9th and other areas across the city.
What's your I'll pose this question to you because we're coming up on another break, but what's the neighborhood planners? What's your funding stream? How do you pay for all of this?
Well, we're funded. My department is funded through the Community Development Block Grant Program. It's federal funds that works to do revitalization along both neighborhoods and commercial areas. So we're federally funded, and then we do get a small portion of general fund from the city's budget, but I believe it's about 90 to 95% of it comes from the federal government through the Community Block Grant Program as our funding stream for our department. Now, when we look at tools and strategies for actually implementing revitalization, it's a little more difficult because the federal resources are scarce, the regulations that go along with them, the red tape that we have now is probably worse than it's ever been on some of these issues when you work with the federal government. And so working in trying to find public-private partnerships, which is really the key to success. We got to be able to take that $1 of city investment and get 10 or 15 or $20 of private return on it through other governmental entities, nonprofits, for-profits, and property owners just making improvements themselves, and really helping to make that spark to make it happen is really the role that we have to play.
Okay, that I completely understand what you're saying. But folks, we're going to head into our next break, but stick with us. We got David. We're fortunate enough to have David Dunn with us for the entire hour. Really appreciate that. But check out our sponsors. Just like neighborhood planning, their sponsors help make this neighborhood in this studio go. That was a very clumsy segue, but we'll catch you right after the break. Thanks a lot.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
Whether you're 10, 25, 50, 80 years old and beyond, everyone needs to live within their means. I'm Tom Coates with Consumer Credit of America. For almost a quarter of a century, we've helped people of all ages learn to manage their personal finances to benefit them far into the future. When problems arise, we've got the experience you need to make those debt problems go away. Got financial problems? Call Consumer Credit of America.
If Tom Coates from Consumer Credit of America was your personal webmaster, Tom would filter out all bad debt emails. If Tom was your mailman, you'd never get any debt reduction junk mail. If Tom Coates was a lineman, he'd block any phone calls offering to reduce your credit card debt.
Hi, I'm Tom Coates with Consumer Credit of America, and we're still your best choice for credit counseling. We're local, we're accountable, and we can do more. You make the call when the time's right for you.
When it comes to competition, there really is none for Consumer Credit of America.
Hey, welcome back, everybody. We're here with David Dunn, neighborhood planner for the city of Des Moines, and before the break, we talked a little bit about his department's funding stream, and this is one of the times that we're really missing the big guy, Dr. Bertroche, because he would be on this federal funding of a city program like a cat in a saucer of cream, but you got a neighborhood planner who sees firsthand how government can work to benefit its citizens, and you got a liberal who thinks sitting across from him. So we're going to talk a little bit about this now. You mentioned the regulations, the red tape, and just. So I asked you in the break, and I'll ask you on the air, is it the fact that the federal government's giving you the money and then not letting you spend it, or what's the deal?
Anytime you use federal funds, there's a lot of strings attached to it. There's a lot of different sections of dealing with everything from historic preservation to floodplain management to making sure that you outreach to minority and women contractors, all absolutely wonderful things and all needed. It's just, making sure that you manage all of those things with your shrinking resources, shrinking budgets, shrinking staff. It becomes very difficult to actually make an impact and really be able to demonstrate to the community what the federal dollars are able to do. I think we've been able to do it here in Des Moines pretty successfully with a couple of different projects that we were able to utilize some federal funding and actually make a win-win situations, but it's becoming harder and harder, and that's a problem.
What are some of those projects?
Another one that's on the south side. Many of you are on the south side and maybe kind of wondered what happened to the old Southern Meadows apartments at 2800 Southeast 8th. That was a project where 5 years ago, the Iowa Finance Authority contacted us. They actually got the property back from foreclosure. It was a 38-unit dilapidated apartment complex. Of all the apartments I've ever walked through for the city of Des Moines, this was by far the worst. Just filthy, full of rodents, insects. In fact, there was 34 apartment units, 15 of them, because of the raw sewage problem they had, weren't habitable. So you had people living in these conditions. The Iowa Finance Authority came to us as a property owner after a foreclosure and came to us and said, would you work with us on this project? And so we were able to, with an infusion of what's called the Neighborhood Stabilization Program. It was the federal government's response to the foreclosure crisis. We were able to buy that property. We were able to demolish the property, redevelop the property. And right now, if you drive by there, it's across from House School in Indianola, you'll see there's 38 row house units that are going up that are going to really have a positive impact on the neighborhood. But just to give you an idea on how some of this works, we got involved in that project in 2008 on the front end with the Iowa Finance Authority. It took us 2 years to walk through the process to do the demolition. because it was deemed eligible for the National Register of Historic Places, which it really, in our opinion, in our professional opinion, probably wasn't one of the more historic sites in the city of Des Moines.
What was the issue with that then?
Well, there were two issues. One, at first they felt it was an architectural issue where the architecture was substantive and really of the 1920s period, but it really was actually like just about every other municipal building at the time. Another one that was actually more interesting is that it was the site of the Booth Memorial Hospital, which, to use a non-politically correct term, at the time it would be a home for unwed mothers.
Okay.
Which back in the 20s, 30s, 40s, and up until the 70s, if you had a teenager who got pregnant and she was unwed, you would actually send her off to one of these homes to actually, while she was big, and have her child, and either the child most times would be put up for adoption. But that was what the place was used for many years. And so for those two reasons, it was deemed historic, which we have done some studies. We've documented the work, but it's just a timely process and a lot of people to work through and with, and a lot of partnerships to work with in order to make this happen. And that's why, when you see things, I know we've gone to a lot of neighborhood meetings. On this particular project, we worked with the Indianola Hills neighborhood, which is where the project's located, on nearly a 2-year process on redeveloping that one site alone to see what it was that they wanted. How could we make that happen? How could we make that happen in, at that time, a failing housing market, and get them a product that was first class, first rate, but also get them, the other things that they wanted, while also getting some of the return on that site that we wanted for the tax base. It was a very in-depth project and required the buy-in of an awful lot of stakeholders.
Well, and that's very interesting. I wonder, would there, in your estimation, I don't want to have you go out on a political limb, obviously, but in your estimation, would there have been a different or more efficient way of going about it? Because it sounds like you had to jump through some hoops that, in theory, are good hoops to have. We want to be able to protect our national heritage and our historical sites, no matter what they are, even if it is, maybe a less than desirable thing like a home for unwed mothers, for example. We don't want to just, kind of erase that from our history. Was there a way, from your observation, your experience, that the process could have been streamlined? Were there regulations that didn't make sense to you at the time? Or was it just a process of, we make judgments, this is the process, and this is how the process has to be?
Yeah, it's a little bit of both.
Okay.
There's no one right or wrong answer, and certainly the people with the State Historic Preservation Office are really good to work with, and they do push you through as quickly as they can. It's just a complicated process to work things through, and what makes it very difficult is when you're working with real estate processes and transactions that have to happen on a time frame.
Yes.
Unfortunately, when you work with realtors or developers or even a property owner, and you say, we're working on it, or neighborhood people that want to know why this building is still there, you say, Mrs. Smith, we're still working on this. I promise you, and it just takes time. And that's one of the hardest things for people with government, is that just nothing happens quickly.
Right. Well, you don't have to tell anybody who is associated with this show that. And, another spiritual shout out to the main man who's off and about into all parts yonder, that government doesn't act quickly. You heard it here first from a guy who knows, a guy who's working in that capacity. So, David, have you noticed anything? Let me back up just a second. Are you dealing with federal, say, I guess the auditors, the people that control the money? Are you dealing with them directly yourself?
We have
those bureaucrats, I guess.
We have a department. One of the things that's important, one of the things that our department is great at, I think, is that we work really hard with our citizens and neighborhoods and everybody else to really try to make the programs work for the needs of the city in Des Moines. And so we do work with, now when we do work with the HUD auditors and the local auditors come in, because you got to run a clean program.
Right.
This is just, the way I use the analogy to make it sports worthy, as I said, it's like the NC. You got to run a clean program, and you got to run the program right. But how do you make that program work best for you? And so that's what we always try to do with all of our federal funds and all of our other programs. How do we make a program from a state level or a federal level really work right here for Des Moines?
Well, and that's kind of the point that I was getting to, because it sounds like to me that you described that your role in the process. I mean, you're getting essentially you're getting a check cut. You have a budget to work with and to do all the different things that you need to do. Are you involved at all in the sort of the negotiations with what money needs to go where or how much money? And if you are, have you noticed budget cuts? I mean, that's the huge issue with Washington right now, is that, hey, things like Southwest 9th aren't a priority to some representative from Ohio, not to disparage Ohio or anything, but are you seeing that push and pull directly in how you do your work?
Yeah. One of the things I tell people every day is if markets worked, we wouldn't be here. As a neighborhood planner, if markets worked, that we wouldn't be here, because the cost to do a lot of these redevelopments is more than the property is worth. And so what our job is to help make things happen, help facilitate development, help show people where there's opportunities with a little bit of pushing, a little bit of nudging, not always financial, but a lot of times that you need it, in order to make a project work. Before I worked on the Southwest 9th stuff, one of the other things I worked on was a lot of residential property redevelopment. And to give you an idea, on average, it would be about a $30,000 to $40,000 gap between the cost to build a house in a lot of our neighborhoods and the price that you could actually sell it for. Now you start taking $30,000, multiplying that several times, it gets really difficult to make those programs sustainable.
Well, and what I think a lot of my conservative friends, if I'm going to kind of play that role today, which I don't take lightly, folks, is, well, you're going to have, you got to have a business opportunity, and when the property's low, you can buy it low, and if you can buy it low, then you can tell them how seriously I take this argument, because you can then build it up and sell it, and then revitalize it that way through complete private equity. And I guess the thing that makes me nervous about that is that you see a lot of consolidation. Now, big box stores, national corporation or national commercial entities, like Buffalo Wild Wings that we mentioned, and some Dunkin' Donuts, I guess. They're great to have. But we also see out in West Des Moines, where I live, the takeover and the sprawl that can happen when so many big companies kind of take over. Is there any thought, or, I mean, getting that commercial stuff is great, but what about the local stuff? How do you operate with that?
You must have those small business owners, those local investors, those people who are right here, that live here, that work here, that want to make those improvements. And they're the ones that are going to come into corridors like Southwest 9th. When you do a market study in Chicago and you look at where to put the next, I don't know, whether it be a drugstore or a grocery store or something else, you only got a page of demographics, and you don't care about anything else, and not to be too blunt, but that's really what drives a lot of, they look at the demographics, where the money is, where there's opportunities. But you get somebody with a dream and an opportunity, and they see, something along that corridor, or, hey, I could build a restaurant here, I could put my office here. That's the kind of stuff that we really need to continue to invest in, and that's the kind of stuff that we really need to continue to support to really make to grow our local economy.
And I again I take that point, and just to add on to it, to kind of misquote something from the last election, government certainly doesn't create jobs per se, but it certainly creates opportunities. Anyway, we're here with David Dunn. Don't know what's happening out there. It feels like there's some interesting things happening outside the studio, kind of shaking us a little bit. So if you're seeing that on the screen, I apologize. We're going to head to another word from our sponsor. We'll be back right after this. Stick around.
Petrosian Associates, how can I help you?
Petrosian Associates will provide you with a friendly, caring, and confidential place to find help for mental health concerns. We are ready for your call. Our doctor, Dr. J. Patrick Petrosh, provides a full range of psychiatric services for children, adolescents, and adults in a forthright and informative manner while maintaining a casual, comfortable, and relaxed atmosphere.
Get away from us, you mean old credit card. We don't have any more money. We're in trouble now. Save us! Help! Somebody save us! Somebody help! Help! Save us!
Hi, I'm Tom Coates from Consumer Credit of Des Moines. If your credit card's a little too animated, give us a call.
Hooray! We're You're our hero!
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
Hey, welcome back, everybody. This is Lefty with Doc and Lefty. Doc has flown the coop, but he should be back next week. Don't quote me on that because I have no idea. He may have just decided to completely expatriate himself and we'll never see him again. I doubt that's the case, but there's always a possibility. We're here with David Dunn, neighborhood planner, for the city of Des Moines, who we've been talking a lot about the some of the planning issues and things, especially on Southwest 9th, which is something that you've been handling recently. But and we've been talking, it was so interesting to me that we've spent most of the hour talking about it, but there's another big, huge development on the south side that was a surprise to me as someone who has only lived in Des Moines since 2007, but still kind of knows the history of this gigantic piece of commercial real estate on the south side. And if you don't know by now, by the hints that I've been dropping, it's the old Southridge Mall. This is an area that even 5 years ago you wouldn't want to necessarily spend a lot of time. 10 years ago you certainly wouldn't want to spend a lot of time because there was nothing there. It was a bunch of empty stores, and it was a dead mall, and those are depressing. But it's coming back in a big way. Can you tell us what's going on with Southridge? What's happening down there?
You know, if you haven't been there, if you haven't driven down there, because I know a lot of the people who watch the show probably live in different parts of the metro, think of the old Southridge Mall. They think of what you just talked about. Go down there. It's absolutely amazing what you'll see. You'll see the new stores. You'll see the new entrance area. It's wonderful. And to see that and to see that growth and to see the potential now that has with the DMAC going in, with the Marshall store and all that other stuff going in, and different phases that are still going on. I know they're still trying to do some sort of a sports facility there, and there's still talk about trying to do some housing on that site and really turning it into a life center, more than a mall, and really making it a place where you can go and do different things. You could live on that site. You can do some shopping there still, but you can maybe go to class, or you can maybe do some different things recreationally. The ideas and the opportunities that are there are just wonderful. That was something that came, originally there's been a lot of talk for a long time about Southridge. Mm-hmm. We did, I think 5 or 6 years ago now, there was what we called the super block area. And it was really roughly that area from Southridge over to the zoo and the golf course, kind of that little block in there. And really, what could we do in that area to really revitalize it and enhance it? And so Southridge is one of those, along with the zoo, along with the stuff you've seen at the golf course, really those catalysts to start bringing back that whole south side. And what you've seen at Southridge is just amazing. And like I said, if you haven't been there, take a trip down there. Instead of going to Jordan Creek next time, go out to Southridge. I think you'll find what you need and you'll enjoy yourself.
Well, and I'll tell you, I'm glad that you brought that up, because that leads me into my next question. Say that I'm somebody from the south side, or even better yet from the south side, say that I'm from Carlisle, mm-hmm. or from Norwalk, or from Indianola. Highway 5 is right there, man. Highway 5 is a 15-minute hop, skip, and a jump to Jordan Creek. Something I already know, even though it's far away, is pretty good if I'm into that sort of thing. What about the south side, Southridge, I should say? What about Southridge, other than proximity, is going to make me stop there as opposed to going to the known quantity?
The two things you're going to get are proximity, which is a key point, and then convenience. I don't personally like to go out to Jordan Creek. It confuses me as a planner. It confuses me. I get baffled. I'm like, where are we going? I have to ask my wife what store we're going to. She says she knows where we're going, but and no offense to the people out in West Des Moines, it's the number one shopping center in the state. But what you'll get there is you'll get what you need. You'll get it in a way that's easy, that's convenient, that can get you in and out, that you can, whatever you're looking for, you can find it there. And I think that's the kind of stuff that when we are looking at how do we rescale, how do we retool these malls? We talked a little bit earlier about, there used to be a 3-mall town. You had Southridge and Merle Hay, and then you had Valley West a little bit out there. And I know we worked with the Merle Hay neighborhood, several years ago to really look at that mall and say, what's next there? And they've kind of branded that. And I think the same's happening with Southridge.
And that was another thing, the Merle Hay is fascinating to me, because I have these flashes of memory when I was growing up in Northwest Iowa of Des Moines being the big trip. You know, my dad was a teacher and was a speech, like Iowa high school large group speech coach, and often bring kids down for All-State, and I would travel with him. You know, bring my sister and I to kind of hang out with the big kids, and we would come down here, and we'd always go to the Merle Hay Mall. And this is back in the early 90s. Boy, I remember the Merle Hay. I remember when I moved to Des Moines thinking the Merle Hay Mall, that's where I got to go. And back in 2007, that was not the case. And now it is so amazing how in just a few short years, how that's been turned completely around. And if the same happens in the Southridge area, I couldn't be happier. So good job. I didn't have a question. Just
yeah,
that was a
see, I can answer that.
Yeah. So I guess moving, you know, the DMAC, I feel like the DMAC addition to Southridge is really crucial because up until now, the only place you go is Ankeny. Mm-hmm. And kind of having those bookends, if you will, of a community college that served a lot of people in this area and around Iowa, not just in the metro. How difficult was it to work with DMAC to get them down? Did they want to go down there? Was that something that they thought would be useful for them? Were you a part of that process at all, bringing them in?
Well, they had a small building right next to Christ the King Church on Southwest 9th. You know, they're looking for expansion. They're looking for different programs. I think it's a natural merger where you have an opportunity. Hey, there's space available. You know, you see that, you've seen it with the old Capitol Mall in Iowa City where the University of Iowa actually owns just about all of that mall now. In what it does, I mean, it's a natural reuse for a mall where maybe it's no longer viable as a statewide or regional retail attraction, but it brings people in. Yep. You know, it does support the businesses that are there. It supports a different kind of business that's there. You know, now it's more of the things you see here in the Skywalk. You see a lot of restaurants, coffee shops, things of that nature. But it really, you know, it brings people in, which is so important to our neighborhoods, our community, the South Side, bringing people in, having positive experiences.
Well, here, and I think we're good so far. But I guess another thought that occurred to me was Des Moines is sort of, at least locally, famous for its neighborhoods, for 58 individual neighborhoods. I'm not going to make you name them.
Well, that's good.
I couldn't name off the top of my head, that's for sure. But even those, you know, notwithstanding those individual neighborhoods, there's also like the kind of the big regional collection of neighborhoods. You got the East Side, you got the South Side. You got West Des Moines, Urbandale, all the the different areas of Des Moines, and they're very territorial for the most part. You know, even the East Siders have their own night at the fair. You know, we know that for sure. Is there any sort of concern about balkanizing the neighborhoods further by, hey, folks, you don't have to go over to the West Side anymore, or you don't have to go to Highland Park anymore, or you don't have to go to this other neighborhood because you can do it within 5 miles of your place? I know that's planning. I understand all that, but do we worry about the exchanges that go back and forth and dollars staying in neighborhoods to the exclusion maybe of other neighborhoods?
Well, you know, certainly it's something that at some point we want people to go to the different areas and spend their dollars. We want people who live in Des Moines to support the businesses in the city of Des Moines. So we want to build that strong commercial base, that tax base. One, it helps our community. Two, we don't want to see those tax dollars leak out to outside areas because we do need them. I mean, with the city of Des Moines, I think it's pretty well known, has budget issues. You know, we've cut, I think, 300 or 400 jobs since I've been at the city over the last 7 years, the franchise fee lawsuit, a lot of things where we've seen those budgets. So when we can spend that money within our community, it helps. And so I think anytime you can have that, you know, it's there's definitely the strong identities. You know, when I go to a neighborhood meeting, if I go on the West Side, they'll tell me that the South Side and the East Side get everything. When I go to the East Side, if I go to a meeting, they'll tell me those South Siders and those West Siders, they get everything. And if I go to the South Side, it's the same way, which tells me that we must be doing something right if nobody's happy. So
that's usually one of the key axioms in politics. If nobody's happy, you've made the right call. So is there a way of, I guess then that leads me to this question. Is there a concern for the identities? Is that something that's a conscious sort of thought for you, or for your department, or whatever? I mean, are you actively promoting, hey, East Siders do East Side things, or West Siders do West Side things?
Of our 58 neighborhoods, they're all little cities in and of themselves. And promoting that, I think, is what really highlights Des Moines and its diversity. I mean, whatever you want as far as the housing stock, characteristics of a neighborhood, whatever it is that you're looking for is there. And in our neighborhoods, I mean, there's some that are well known. Everybody knows Beaverdale. Everybody knows Sherman Hill. Everybody knows Drake. But Union Park, not many people know that. But if you take a few minutes and you drive up there and you look at the area around the park, you'll be stunned with how beautiful it is and how wonderful the housing stock is. You go on the east side, there's a street called Thompson Street. Go there, drive it. You'll be amazed it's there and you've never realized it before. Go in different parts, go on the south side. I mean, all of our parts of our community have their own little identities. And that's what's wonderful about the city of Des Moines, is that we're really a collection of smaller communities and neighborhoods that are all together. And we all kind of still have that small town, we care about each other. We're not a big city that doesn't care. I mean, you go somewhere, you see somebody, you talk to them, you find out what they're up to, they find out about you. And that's one of the things that I personally love about our city.
That's absolutely fantastic. Now, another big piece, you mentioned the block, the south side, like the South Ridge, the golf course, and the zoo. I was just at the zoo for a East and South Side Chamber. Now, that's one thing that we were going. That one of a guest that I had talked about coming on, and why Dave is so Dave or David.
Either one's fine. We're friends now. You can call me Dave.
Okay, great. Dave was so great to come in at the last minute and really provide a lot of good information about what's going on. Not just on the south side, where he knows a lot about what's up, but Des Moines as a whole. We had one of the executive directors of the East and South Side Chamber who had agreed to come on, and then she had a family emergency and wasn't able to make it. But that's a new entity in and of itself. The East and South Side Chambers combine the East Side and the South Side into a commercial chamber, or into a chamber of commerce that I think that my law firm is a member of, that is providing a really interesting direction to the commercial development of both of those sort of quote unquote sides of town. And are you working with them closely? Is that a relationship that you find mutually beneficial?
Absolutely. We need the chamber. We need, they're doing a great job, really getting some of the businesses together, get them organized, get people talking to one another. So many times there's opportunities for business, for one type of business to do business with another business locally, but they just didn't know it. And that's one of the things I think that they've done a great job with, bringing the South and the East chambers together. It's a wonderful organization to be involved with, and I would highly recommend it.
I just got a text message here who asked, isn't the old Fort Des Moines being revitalized, and what's going on? What's the plan there?
Yeah, it's one of the other, one of the many exciting projects.
Just down there. It's so funny that I got that question. I'm sorry to interrupt you. I was just down there in that place. Go ahead. Yeah, it's
a $28 million project to essentially bring it back to what it looked like back when it was the Fort Des Moines. With a lot of that, a lot of the buildings will be back into housing. They're going to keep some of the old parade grounds and some of those other historical sites. But it's really, you talk about hidden gems on the south side. Take it, next time you go to the zoo, drive through there first and realize what you've got there and the opportunity that's coming to true with really redeveloping that into its own little neighborhood.
It's really an impressive complex. I don't know if there's folks that get down to the fort very often. They associate the fort with prisoners and with the release program down there, and that's certainly a reality. But the entire facility is just unbelievable, and getting that to, I think that I drove down there, and gosh, I went up to one of the gates, and the booth was just broken. It was just broken, like the empty air was just nothing. And so you really, that's an exciting development. I think that's going to be really, really interesting. Is it going to be mainly planned on being just a museum, or expanding the museum aspect of it, or what's the?
Well, it's really, intended for housing. A lot of it's going to be housing. So you're going to see people, housing built people living there. Some retail to support that housing, but really making it a neighborhood again. For many years, if you talk to people who actually did live in the fort, you know, and the houses that were there. They talk about that there was a movie theater there and a swimming pool there, and all of the amenities of a small town in and of itself right in the fort. Now, not all of that's coming back, but a lot of it, you'll see it in more than just, you know, the 4 or 5 old buildings right now that you think, what are they doing with those? I think people will really be amazed when the project's completed.
That's very cool. Well, folks, we're going to take another short break. Coming into our last segment, very fortunate to have David Dunn here with us for the entire hour. And just pay attention to our sponsors and know that Labinas Law Firm, my outfit, sponsors this show. Petrosha & Associates, that's Doc Petrosha's business that helps sponsor the show. And just support your local businesses. Support places that support shows like this. This is a way to kind of talk about your city, your town that you are personally invested in. It's easy. It's easy to get fired up about national politics and the things that happen sort of outside your own border, but kind of turn some of that attention and turn some of that passion inward a little bit, and that is going to help you revitalize the Fort Des Moines. So we'll check you all back here right after the break. This is webcast1live.com.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
Whether you're 10, 25, 50, 80 years old and beyond, everyone needs to live within their means. I'm Tom Coates with Consumer Credit of America. For almost a quarter of a century, we've helped people of all ages learn to manage their personal finances to benefit them far into the future. When problems arise, we've got the experience you need to make those debt problems go away. Got financial problems? Call Consumer Credit of America.
If Tom Coates from Consumer Credit of America was your personal webmaster, Tom would filter out all bad debt emails. If Tom was your mailman, you'd never get any debt reduction junk mail. If Tom Coates was a lineman, he'd block any phone calls offering to reduce your credit card debt.
Hi, I'm Tom Coates with Consumer Credit of America, and we're still your best choice for credit counseling. We're local, we're accountable, and we can do more. You make the call when the time's right for you.
When it comes to competition, there really is none for Consumer Credit of America.
Hey, welcome back for the last segment of the show. This is Lefty with Doc and Lefty here at webcast1live.com. With us is neighborhood planner for the city of Des Moines, senior neighborhood planner for the city of Des Moines, Dave Dunn. And we're talking about all the great things that are happening on the south side. And I gotta say, as a business owner, which is a weird thing to call myself, but as a business owner on the Southeast 14th, my main concern and my main question to you is that Southeast 14th is probably the worst north-south street in this entire town for me getting to work. And mainly it's because there's too many cars and is there a way, can we widen it just a little bit for me? We're friends now. Can you help me out?
You know, if I could, I would. It is a difficult issue. I mean, you know, it's a constant battle between land use and transportation, and you could put in another lane. And there are many places where we have, but there's just so many cars trying to get to downtown, trying to get other places that it's a difficult place, especially during rush hour, to try to get here and back.
It's so tough, and I was saying that tongue in cheek because there really is with everything that is on Southeast 14th Street. There's no room anymore to do anything, and really, it's not strictly necessary. It's just I guess busy traffic is a good problem to have, but
it is. And one of the things that's, interesting is we're to the point now where most traffic engineers are starting to say that you actually can't build your way out of traffic congestion. The more lanes you build, it just encourages more development and in a sense more cars. And so you get to the point where you're like, well, we just added, we just added a lane. I mean, you see it to some extent here already on 235 where we've added an auxiliary lane where we've built more capacity. And now all you're saying, okay, we've got to go in and add more. And as the growth of the suburbs continue, you'll probably see more of that. But really, it is a great issue to have. It's a great concern to have because that does mean that we have people who want to be on the south side and want to be in Des Moines.
Well, that brings that. You just made me think of a question because the Windsor Heights lane widening project has been going on since, when did they get that started? Earlier in the spring, I think. It's been pretty much the entire, over half the year at this point. Now, I as a driver on 235 I use 235 every single day going from my place to my office. and I try not to go on 235 between 5 and 7, or even actually 4 and 7 for the most part, because right there around the Windsor Heights area, it comes to a standstill for about 20 minutes. And so I had always considered that extra lane would be better there. And you're saying that's going to be maybe the reality is counter to that.
Well, it certainly will be better in the short run. There's absolutely no doubt about that. So, in the next, it's going to ease congestion when it's done, just like a lot of our widening projects are. When you look 5, 10, 15, 20 years down the road, that's when you begin to say, hey, we've encouraged more growth. We've encouraged more growth out west. A lot of that traffic still gets to downtown. I mean, we have 70,000 jobs downtown. That many people come to work every day downtown, which is roughly the same amount as Denver. So when you want to talk about an economic engine for the state of Iowa, downtown Des Moines is just that, and that's not going away. And you have all those cars trying to get down here every day and get back. You see those types of issues, and it will in the short run obviously make an impact. In the long run, though, you'll continue just to see that push for growth further and further away.
One of the things that you see in a lot of cities is that the downtown is busy between 8 and 5. And then at 5:30 is deserted. And that happens down here, except on Friday and Saturday nights, or if there's like a big concert in the middle of the week. Downtown Des Moines is a ghost town because everybody goes back west. Do you see the problem of those people taking they're buying lunch, they're spending money while they're here for the most part, but not very much because they're working for most of the day. Are you seeing a problem with folks coming downtown to make their money and then spending it out in the suburbs? Is that a problem for Des Moines?
Well, certainly. I mean, anytime that there's tax revenue involved, it can be problematic. I think one of the things we've tried real hard over the last 10 years or so that I've been involved with the city to really make downtown a 24-hour-a-day destination. You see things like trying to spread Court Avenue. You see things on Walnut Street that we're trying to do down here now that we're revamping the pedestrian area into more of a retail-friendly spot in the East Village over on the other side. And the growth in the residential apartments and condos in downtown, it's a long process to take that from what it was, 10 or 15 years ago into that truly 24-hour-a-day neighborhood and city in and of itself. But it's something that the city's very committed to doing. And I think that, even when you look from 5 and 10 years ago where you've seen progress, I think you'll even see more progress in the next 5 or 10 years.
Well, I love that because I'm moving back to the downtown-ish area, in the Union Park place after a long stint in on the west side of our metro area. And I gotta say, West Side, I love you. I love you, but you're boring. You're boring. Downtown is where it's at. You got all the good restaurants are downtown now. They're great restaurants everywhere. They're great restaurants everywhere in the city, but the ones that get the buzz are downtown. And I got to think that the planning commission, that your department, that everybody involved has been as integral in. Hey, downtown Des Moines was great, and then it was terrible, and now it's getting better, and it's exciting to be around here now. And so appreciate that.
Well, thanks.
Hey, not a problem. We got a few minutes left. Is there anything else that you'd like to cover briefly that we haven't covered? Anything on your mind about some of the? I know there's a special election that's coming up. We could spend a couple minutes talking about that, but otherwise, I'll leave the last 2 or 3 minutes to you, Dave.
Well, I think there's a lot of great things going on. I think across the city as a whole, but we've talked a lot about the South Side tonight, and the South Side's got a lot of wonderful things. There is the council race. There's 2 candidates right now that we know of that are in the race. I think it's a March election. It's going to be I think both candidates are very well organized. You're going to see a real hard-fought election, but what's really going to be the benefit of that, the South Side is going to benefit out of that election. Whatever candidate wins, the South Side will be the true winner out of that because you're going to get an advocate for the South Side. Now, Brian Meyer was a great advocate for the South Side while he was on the council. A really good council member, helped make a lot of the projects that we've worked on. He was really instrumental. And council member Christine Hensley, another wonderful advocate for the southwest side of the community in downtown, and countless projects wouldn't be done without her. And I think that through this race, through this process, whatever candidate wins, because I think it is going to be a closely, tightly fought election, we're going to get another great advocate for the South Side out of it, and I think that's what's really going to win when this election occurs.
That's fantastic. And folks, we do know the date of the election. You said it's in March, but
looking, I think the first Tuesday in March, and I don't have that in front of me right now.
Sure.
But
First Tuesday in March, folks, get involved. We just had a I believe was it a state representative seat in the South Side that was voted on just a few weeks ago, back in the early part of November.
Minority Leader McCarthy
Yes.
had resigned to take another position, and then Councilmember Brian Meyer ran for that seat and then won a week before the general election. And so now that's the seat that's, because of that, and then that's the council seat that was vacated.
Well, I got to get involved in local politics, because those are the folks that are really affecting you on a day-to-day level. David Dunn, just thank you so much for coming. It was very interesting. I really appreciated it. The David Dunn, neighborhood planner for the city of Des Moines, kind enough to take an hour out of his Tuesday to kind of help us zone and do some commission work on this show. Anyway, we'll be back next week with more of the same old thing, that is taking fresh takes on state and local, national, international affairs. Hopefully, we'll be able to find Doc and bring him back for a homecoming reunion show. But anyway, I'm Lefty with Doc and Lefty. This has been webcast1live.com. We're here every Tuesday from 6:30 to 7:30 after the Fallon Forum. So check out Ed Fallon's show. Check out his great March for Climate Change, and then keep the needle or the website or whatever it is that you listen to this show. Keep that tuned to us, because we're making things happen, whether it's the South Side or downtown Des Moines. So thanks a lot, everybody. Cheers.
Hi, I'm Representative Tom Shaw, and I love these guys. Both of them.
Love these guys. Get over here. Get over here. Love both of them.